After losing his adventurous parents, Tarzan is left behind as an orphan. And despite luckily being taken in by a different family, a mother Carla who rescued him from the leopard who killed his family, he can't escape feeling like he does not belong anywhere. This is the core of the journey in Tarzan's life. Losing his home on the human side, to the point where he does not even know what he really is only half of his struggle. While Carla took Tarzan into her heart and gave him a name, the rest of the troop does not give him such a warm welcome. The only one of the gorillas who seems to be curious enough to learn to accept him is the young Turkina. But Kerchak is full of doubts, and even in shock about this. He would rather the jungle takes care of Tarzan's fragile future than risk taking him in fear of it threatening his tribe. Clearly Tarzan does not look like a threat, and Kerchak has no option but to attempt a power move on Carla, as if that would help. I know they are gorillas, and doing this is normal, but this is an animated movie, giving them nuanced emotions expressed and understood by humans, so I'll view this from a standpoint of our behavior. Kerchak also thinks that she might just want Tarzan as a replacement for their other son, who was taken from them by the same leopard, Sabor. After questioning Carla if the boy was really alone, he accepts he can come with them, but he does not accept him as their son. As time goes on and Tarzan grows, more signs of his different nature are shown in his family environment. There are certain imitative abilities that he's able to develop, along with having a unique chant, which the mothers don't enjoy their children chanting along with. So, as much as he learns, he does not fit in. While Turk is usually nice to him, she doesn't want him to ruin her reputation with her clique. Tarzan wants to desperately fit in though, yearning to find that true acceptance he struggles to get in his environment. And when Turk tells him he can't tag along if he can't keep up, he obviously is left no choice but to try. Turk hoped this would just shoo Tarzan away, but he already was able to develop such a curiosity for things in the jungle, he sticks to her no matter what she tries. She lets the boys know, who are very unaccepting of Tarzan, that she got it under control and will get him to go home. But she also can't bring herself to just tell him off directly. She likes him too much to do that, but doesn't realize that her telling him there is an impossible chance, no matter how stupid, to feel accepted, he of course will try to achieve the impossible. But his struggle to fulfill the dare of getting an elephant hair to finally be accepted by the boys, who look at him clearly just for entertainment value, gets him into a lot of trouble. Mistaken for a piranha, he gets the elephants into a panic and has them run into the jungle, trampling right in the direction of the gorilla's nest. Kerchak barely manages to save a little gorilla, and is now trying to figure out what happened. Turk tries to find an excuse for Tarzan, but he has no intention to try to escape responsibility and tells him the truth. And how it wasn't his intention. Kerchak is livid, no matter how honest Tarzan is, and rejects him from even having the potential anymore to become part of their kind. This is very painfully rejecting for him, because he really has no other option, and he can't help but run away. Truly at odds with who he is, self-hating even, wanting to try anything to change himself to fit in, Carla still welcomes him as best she can. At first she tries to make it seem not so bad, that Tarzan shouldn't care about what Kerchak thinks, but he really wants to finally be taken into her awareness for clearly being different. She tells him she's seeing him, and playfully points out all the ways they are similar, yet inevitably lands on their difference. She tells him to close his eyes, and lets him know that these are all just superficial matters, because the real link that keeps them together is not anything we can see, but only feel in and as our heart. So, he's encouraged to stay curious and become who he truly is, attempting to become like the gorillas, but also finding more of his own strengths and human ingenuity to help within the troop. He is now strong enough to keep up with the others, who have gotten used to the shenanigans him and Turk get up to. Tantor is also now part of their tribe, it seems, even guessing that perhaps Tarzan might be a type of elephant, considering how strong he is. But this speculation is interrupted by a sudden attack from Sabor. Tarzan tries to find an escape and gets a spear, as Kerchak gets involved in the fight. At the moment where his strength is fading, Tarzan swoops back in and takes over. Everybody looks in anticipation, and for a second it looks like Sabor is victorious, but it is Tarzan who managed to use the spear tip to win over the leopard in the end. This victory over the enemy, who has already been a bane to their troop, is now being presented as Tarzan's revenge for the sake of their family's safety, in hopes that Kerchak might finally recognize him as truly part of it. But immediately they are interrupted by another anomaly. And as we know, Kerchak does not like anything new to cross his path. Though Tarzan, as the one seeking for something to fulfill his feeling of acceptance, curiously follows the strange and loud sound. In the bamboo forest, he comes upon someone slicing through everything, while mouthing some self-grandiosities. He goes closer and almost gets shot by this walking turret shooting at anything that moves. Other humans move into the scene, which only increases Tarzan's curiosity. He observes them, unable to look away, smiling strongly, hearing how happy the woman and her father are on their expedition. Both men walk off, and the woman stays behind and has a fruit fall on her, figuring that this must be the one keeping the man on his toes, or rather his trigger finger, all the time. She starts to sketch him, but little does she know, she's walking into a huge amount of trouble right now. In probably one of the most action-filled 2D Disney animation scenes, she gets swung through the jungle by Tarzan, at first very reluctant about it, but eventually recognizes that she has no other option, and with a big crash manages to escape the monkeys who really just wanted that sketch for their little prince. She can't believe what she is witnessing, and just tries to get some distance from this man who talks to monkeys, babbling to herself about this chaotic turn of events. He gently pushes her to safety, and then with endless natural curiosity looks at her in close, or rather too close detail. As much as he lacks civilized behavior and physical boundaries, he has no bad intentions in his heart, and finally finds someone who shares the same strange hand shape he has, compared to the rest of the gorillas. He imitates some words she says, which gets her very excited to communicate more, but he's just starting to feel like he can begin to communicate with her, and introduces himself. After a bit of learning struggles, they both learn each other's name and get interrupted by another gunshot. Clayton, she yells, and he imitates the gun sound, and gets her to swing through the jungle again. Back at the camp, there has been a bit of a ruckus going on. The curious animals all took it into their hands to make proper use of all the human tools, every single one of which is of course best used as an instrument. Finally, the expeditioner makes contact with the gorillas, seeing how Tarzan is a familiar part of their group. In awe, Turk and her look at each other, interrupted by Kerchak, who intimidates her and identifies her as something they now should all avoid. Tarzan struggles to figure out what he should do, still not understanding what he just experienced, but goes back with his mother. In come the other humans, Clayton with his itchy trigger finger and Archimedes the scientist. Barely waking up from her daze, Jane now tells her father of this chaotic experience, involving most surprisingly a man wearing a loincloth. In the gorilla nest, Kerchak says they should all avoid these creatures, but Tarzan doesn't want to accept how rejecting he is of anything different. Not only that, he's also very upset that his mother never let him know that there are others like him, feeling like he has been living a lie. Later on, Jane sketches him, and is still enamored of her experience with him, a man with such different circumstances in his life, far away from civilization's way of approaching the world. The civilized Clayton is not happy to hear of this fantasy that Jane speaks of, and immediately is proven wrong about its lack of reality, while Archimedes also shows curiosity in Tarzan, just like he shows in them. Clayton is only concerned with getting Tarzan to help him find the gorillas. I forgot to mention that he first gives him a real nice welcome. Jane is very curious to show this man, who has not made any contact with her world, what kind of things exist out there. Tarzan is in an absolute thrill, endlessly fascinated with all kinds of various things he's shown that he can learn from. Tirelessly he goes through the images with the projector, hungrier than one could ever be for more knowledge about the world, that also have strangers like him in it. Clayton continues to try to get him to inform him about gorillas, but Tarzan has much more of an eye for Jane, and the feelings she awakens in him, than whatever Clayton is going on about. They all start to get curious though, since they're not staying here forever, if Tarzan would allow them to come into contact with the gorillas. Of course, he can't do so, only mentioning the name Kerchak as his reason for not being able to. Tarzan's gorilla family is also starting to get a little worried about him leaving so often, and Turk is feeling very left out at this point. The captain of the ship with which the freak came here with decides to now leave, and Clayton asks for at least 2 more days, but to no avail. Tarzan makes his way there in time and talks to Jane, wondering about what is going on. She tells him they're leaving, and she asks him if he would like to come with her to England. He doesn't understand that this is a one-way trip, and would rather she stay, trying to woo her with some flowers. But she feels she can't just leave home and be with him, as much as he would like to, and runs away. Clayton, being the empathetic true wise man of the feminine that he is, tells Tarzan that there is no way into a woman's heart, but we might be able to have her stay here if he would show them the gorillas. Hearing that Tarzan would show him, he lets his crew member know he's changing his plans, who is totally kind and not deceptive looking. So Tarzan asks Turk and Tantor to help him distract Kerchak so he could get the humans to make contact with the rest of the gorillas. And despite not hanging out with them much anymore, Turk has a weak spot for Tarzan and gets convinced. Easily tricked, Kerchak now hunts down these 2 disguised threats, and Tarzan makes his way to the nest with the others. Of course, being very hesitant, Tarzan's mom first shies away. But after the 2 show themselves as more friendly, which Clayton is not happy with at all, the gorillas get curious back about them. Finally they make contact. Jane and Archimedes both being treated with a welcome by them. Clayton marks down on his map where they are located, forging his plan that has yet to set into gear. He is also irritated by all of their behavior, completely incompatible seeing how he would be in any way similar to the apes who show a curiosity in the things he has. Suddenly, Turk and Tantor find their way back to the nest, leading Kerchak also back. He can't believe what he's seeing. Luckily also coming in at the right time right before Clayton was going to shoot one of the gorillas. Tarzan holds Kerchak down in order to let him escape, and after doing so, is extremely confused of his own behavior. As if he was completely acting on instinct, staring at his hands in regret. He's confused, more than ever, and Carla finally tells him the truth about his history. She shows him where she found him, and he realizes that the entire time he had been orphaned and adopted. He wears the clothing his father brought to this place, and is now accepting that he would return to live with his own kind, leaving Carla and the gorillas. It is hard for her to accept, but she knows she can't do anything but let him be what he always was. He's on the way to the ship, hearing about the things he would see in England, the scientists and royalties he'd meet. But for him, he's just happy that he would be with Jane, which makes her also glad. He looks back one final time to the only place he knew and grew up in. Turk and Tantor miss him dearly, but Turk is only able to express anger so far at Tarzan for leaving them. He climbs on the boat and is welcomed by the so-called civilized world already, who try to lock him up so Clayton can fulfill his plan and betrayal to get the gorillas and sell them. There is no way out, and it seems there is no way to stop this. But on the island, Tantor hears Tarzan scream, and is tired at Turk's unempathetic behavior, and both make their way to save and help Tarzan. In the boat, Archimedes can't believe that they would get and cage the gorillas, which is strange, because damn, how long has this guy been alive now? Anyway, the elephant's strength managed to get Tarzan out, and after an endearing help from Turk, quickly makes his way to the island. Clayton and his henchmen invade the gorilla nest, trapping them in nets and cages. Right as he is about to shoot Kerchak, Tarzan and his friends come back to interrupt this crime against nature. They free the gorillas, and with the help of the monkey prince, which Jane is familiar with, bring heartful justice to this situation. As they free Carla, Tarzan is grazed by one of Clayton's bullets. It seems as this planning is now falling apart, he has become as blood-hungry as Sabor, and sadly manages to shoot Kerchak. Tarzan is furious and wants to stop Clayton, who still shoots him, and now simply tries to kill him for ruining his plans. They get into a fight, and Tarzan gets the upper hand, aiming at Clayton, who tells him to shoot, to be a man. But Tarzan is not a killer, and knows that this does not make him a man. He scares Clayton by imitating a gunshot sound, who really is full of fear, and not at all like this manliness that he tries to pretend he is. Tarzan smashes the gun, so Clayton reaches for his machete. Swinging around like a total madman, Tarzan tries to restrain him with whines. Clayton continues to swing aimlessly as if possessed by only having the desire to kill at this point, and doesn't notice how he's getting himself in danger, finally cutting even the vine he's holding onto, falling and breaking his neck in the process. Jane finds Tarzan, and they both look now towards Kerchak, who seems to have been badly wounded. Tarzan feels such guilt for having gotten them in danger, but Kerchak says that he came back to save them, and that's what matters. Finally, he accepts him as his son, and thus the new leader of the tribe who now looks up to him. He feels sad over this loss, but with this crown now given to him, feels the strength of his being. Having finally gotten the permission to continue the little kingdom of Kerchak, he has become energized with his blessing to become the new heir and tribe father. At the beach, Jane, Archimedes and the captain are on their way back. Tarzan says he will miss her, which tears at her heart, and she doesn't feel like she wants to leave him for England. Her father tries to change her mind, which she still isn't sure about, but after her glove floats back to Tarzan, and Archimedes saying that her love is reason enough to leave the new world behind, she goes to Tarzan. They finally kiss and are welcomed by their animal family. Archimedes, vicariously living through this experience, now also gets the idea to leave his home behind, which is kind of a Disney thing to do. But I guess this is a Disney movie, and this is definitely the most glaring Disney insert into shaping the story differently from the original by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And with that, we see the couple at home in the jungle, swinging through it in majestic music by Phil Collins singing and Mark Mancina scoring, with the new king of the jungle winning over the threat of civilization. I have watched this movie many times as a kid, and only returned now, about 20 years later. I feel like it is all in all an interesting story, showing how someone growing up in the jungle can end up more truthful and virtuous than a man raised in civilization. As a kid, I always enjoyed the time where he himself was a kid more, and kinda got disappointed whenever he would go through his quick transformation scene. Now that I'm an adult, I ask myself where the story could lead to. Could Tarzan and Jane really have a love that gives birth to a paradise of humanity and live happily ever after, avoiding all the corruption of society that could result in someone like Clayton? Who knows? The movie ends with a wide perspective, showing that there is all kinds of potential on the horizon, after having finally encountered someone he feels accepted by, and being accepted by his tribe leader. And ultimately, this hope is what it inspires. I never looked into any of the original work, spin-offs or sequels, but I can also see the story turning into something more focused on Tarzan and his history. Because as much as he might have now started his journey with someone who accepts him, it is a whole other story to learn deep down what it means to accept one's own being fully from within.